It was 3:18 a.m. when a 6-year-old boy asked Naomi Carter a question that would destroy her normal life forever. The elevator doors slid open on the 7th floor of St. Vincent Mercy Hospital, South Chicago. The hallway smelled like antiseptic, burnt coffee, and exhaustion. Naomi stepped out slowly. Her sneakers squeaked against the polished floor. She adjusted the strap of her overworked nurse's bag and exhaled. 14 hours. That's how long she'd been on her feet. 2 gunshot victims, 1 overdose, 1 child she couldn't save. Her hands were steady, but her heart was tired. Naomi was 29, black, single, living paycheck to paycheck in a 1-bedroom apartment on the south side that rattled every time the L train passed. She sent money home to her grandmother in Gary, Indiana. She slept 4 hours a night, and she believed firmly in one rule: mind your business. That rule had kept her alive. The elevator doors slid shut behind her. Then she heard it. A small voice. "Excuse me, miss, do you know this address?" Naomi froze. She turned slowly. Standing near the nurse's station was a little boy, maybe 6, 7 at most. His shoes were soaked, his dark hair was plastered to his forehead like he'd been caught in the rain. He wore a navy coat that looked far too expensive for a child wandering alone in a hospital at 3 a.m., and in his small hand was a folded piece of paper. Naomi's instincts flared immediately. Children don't just end up here. Not like this. Not alone. "Where's your parent?" she asked gently. Her eyes were already scanning the hallway for security. The boy shook his head once. Calm. Too calm. "I didn't mean to," he said quietly. "I just followed the lights." There was something in his eyes that unsettled her. Not fear, not confusion. Calculation. Like he was used to being watched, like he knew how to survive silence. Naomi stood up. She should call security, CPS, the police. Everything in her training screamed, "Don't get involved." But the boy's small fingers tightened around the hem of her scrub top. And then he said 7 words that changed everything. "Please," he whispered. "They don't like police." If a child asked you for help at 3 a.m. and begged you not to call police, what would you do? Subscribe, because her decision changes everything. Naomi made a decision that would alter the rest of her life. "All right," she said. "We're walking together, straight there, no detours." The boy nodded once. "Thank you. My name is June Suk." His pronunciation was careful, educated. Not the voice of a lost child, the voice of someone trained. They stepped outside into the early morning mist. Chicago was half asleep around them, streets empty, streetlights buzzing, the city breathing slow and heavy like it was holding a secret. Naomi kept her phone in her hand the entire walk, thumb hovering over 911, just in case. But she noticed things. Black SUVs parked too cleanly along side streets. Engines off, lights off, but shadows moving behind tinted glass. Men sitting on benches who looked up from newspapers at the exact same time. A rhythm of movement behind them, never getting closer, never falling back. Naomi's pulse quickened. She didn't say anything. Neither did June Suk. He walked beside her with his hands in his coat pockets. Calm, measured, like this was routine, like he'd done this before. If you're watching this right now and you'd keep walking with that boy knowing something was wrong, you're braver than most. Subscribe, because she doesn't know she's already being watched. Naomi wanted to ask questions. Who are you really? Why were you left alone? What kind of 6-year-old has a driver? But something told her not to. Something told her the answers would cost more than she could afford. 20 minutes passed. The neighborhood changed. Buildings got taller, streets got cleaner, cars got quieter. And then they arrived. Naomi stopped short. The gate was enormous. Stone walls stretched in both directions. Motion sensors blinked red in the darkness. Cameras angled like eyes watching every step. And carved into the iron gate, a black phoenix, wings spread wide, rising from fire. Naomi felt her chest tighten. She'd seen symbols like this before. On news reports she scrolled past, on crime documentaries she half-watched. This wasn't old money. This was blood money. Jun-suk stepped forward. His small fingers punched a code into the keypad. The gate opened silently. Lights flared on behind the walls, and men appeared from nowhere. 6 of them, suits pressed sharp, earpieces glowing blue, guns concealed beneath jackets, but obvious in the way they stood. Naomi instinctively stepped in front of Jun-suk. "Hey, listen, I'm a nurse," she started. Her voice cracked. "I just helped him find his way. I'm not involved in anything." The men ignored her completely. Instead, every single one of them bowed, low, respectful, to the child. Naomi's blood turned cold. 6 men in suits, 6 men with guns, and every single one of them bowed to a child. Naomi's mind couldn't process it. She stood frozen, her hand still gripping her phone, her body still positioned in front of Jun-suk that she could protect him. But protect him from what? He didn't need protection. He owned it. One of the men spoke into his earpiece, a foreign language, Korean, rapid, urgent. Then silence. Jun-suk stepped around Naomi. He walked toward the men like he'd done it 1,000 times. No fear, no hesitation. He turned back to her. His small face softened. "You can go now," he said gently. "You'll be safe." Safe. That word hit different, coming from a 6-year-old surrounded by armed guards. Naomi's voice cracked. Who are you?" Jun-suk hesitated. For the first time, something flickered in his eyes. Not fear, sadness. The kind of sadness no child should carry. "My father's name is Kung Min Jae." The name hit her like a gunshot. She'd heard it before. Not on the news. News didn't touch men like him. She'd heard it in whispers, in trauma rooms at 2 a.m. when patients came in with bullet wounds and no names, in break rooms when nurses talked about bodies that disappeared before police arrived. Kung Min Jae, a Korean syndicate that controlled ports from Los Angeles to Busan. Quiet money, violent consequences. No arrests, no leaks, no mercy. And this boy, this small, soaked, too calm boy, was his heir. She helped a lost child find his way home. She didn't know his home was a kingdom built on blood. If this gave you chills, subscribe, because what she receives next will change her life. Jun-suk was escorted through the gate. The men surrounded him like a formation. Practiced. Precise. He looked back once, just once. Then the gate closed. Iron met iron with a sound that echoed through Naomi's bones. She stood there shaking, alone. The mist wrapped around her like a cold hand. Her mind raced. Forget it. Go home. Pretend this never happened. She turned and walked. Fast. Faster. She didn't look back. She told herself it was over. She told herself she'd never see that boy again. She told herself wrong. 3 days later, an envelope arrived at her apartment. No return address, no postmark, just her name written in neat, careful handwriting. Inside was $20,000 in cash and a note. Childish letters, blue ink. "Thank you for not leaving me. Father says kindness should be repaid. June." Naomi's hands trembled. She didn't sleep that night, or the next. She just discovered the boy she helped is heir to a Korean crime empire. $20,000 shows up at her door. Would you keep the money or burn it? $20,000. Cash. Sitting on Naomi's kitchen table like a bomb waiting to explode. She stared at it for hours, counted it twice, touched it once, then pushed it away like it burned her skin. The note sat beside it. Childish handwriting, blue ink. Thank you for not leaving me. Father says kindness should be repaid. June. Naomi's hands trembled. She didn't sleep that night. Or the next. She wanted to scream. She wanted to throw the money out the window. She wanted to pretend that night never happened. But she couldn't, because $20,000 was more than she made in 6 months. Because her grandmother needed new medication. Because her rent was late. Again. She picked up her phone, searched for a way to return it. No address, no contact, no trace. The Kong family didn't exist on paper. They existed in shadows. And now, those shadows knew her name. Naomi shoved the money into a shoebox and hid it under her bed. Like that would make it disappear. Like that would make her safe. 4 days passed. She worked her shifts, treated her patients, tried to forget. Then the phone call came. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. A woman's voice. Professional. Cold. Miss Carter, my employer would like to speak with you. Naomi's grip tightened. I'm not interested. Silence on the other end. Then, you were seen with his son. She thought walking away would keep her safe. She was wrong. If you're still watching, subscribe now, because what happens next changes everything. Naomi's heart stopped. I helped a lost kid, she said quickly. That's it. I don't want trouble. The woman's voice didn't waver. There's no trouble, Miss Carter. Only an invitation. And if I say no? Pause. My employer doesn't extend invitations twice. The line went dead. Naomi stood in her tiny kitchen, hands shaking, phone pressed to her chest. She thought about running, packing a bag, taking the Greyhound to Gary, hiding at her grandmother's house until this blew over. But she knew. Men like Kang Min-jae didn't let things blow over. They didn't forget. They collected. The next evening, a black car appeared outside her apartment building. 7 p.m. Exactly. Engine purring, headlights off, waiting. Naomi stood at her window for 10 minutes. Then she grabbed her jacket, walked downstairs, opened the door, stepped inside. The door locked behind her, and the car pulled away into the Chicago night. No turning back now. The car drove for 45 minutes. No words, no music, just the hum of the engine and the city lights bleeding past tinted windows. Naomi kept her hands folded in her lap. Tight, still. She didn't ask where they were going. She already knew she wouldn't get an answer. When the car finally stopped, she stepped out into a world she didn't recognize. A private estate, hidden behind walls that stretched higher than any building on her block. Guards met her at the entrance. They searched her bag, scanned her body, took her phone, then escorted her through corridors that cost more than her entire life. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, art on the walls that belonged in museums, and silence. The kind of silence that only exists where power lives. They led her to a room at the end of a long hallway. Inside, a man sat behind a desk, Kang Min-jae. He wasn't what she expected. Not loud, not cruel, not dramatic. He was still, controlled, surgical, dangerous in the way men are when they don't need to raise their voice. His eyes lifted to meet hers, dark, sharp, reading her like a file. Miss Carter, he said, please, sit. Naomi didn't move. I'd rather stand. A flicker of something crossed his face. Amusement, maybe respect. He leaned back. You protected my heir, he said slowly. You did not run. You did not sell your story. You did not ask for anything. Naomi crossed her arms. He's a child. Yes, Min-jae replied, and in my world, that makes him a target. The words hung in the air. Heavy. True. A child worth billions. A target since birth. If you're still watching, you already know this story is different. Subscribe, because what he offers her next will shock you. Min-jae stood. He walked around the desk slowly, stopped a few feet from her. "I'm not offering you money," he said. "I'm not offering you marriage. I'm not offering you servitude." Naomi's jaw tightened. "Then what do you want?" "A role," he said. "Be visible, be normal, be someone my son can trust outside this life." Naomi stared at him. "And if I say no?" Min-jae's expression softened. "Just slightly. Just enough. Then I'll still protect you," he said quietly, "because my son chose you." That was the most terrifying part. Not the threat, not the power, the fact that a child's instinct had sealed her fate. Naomi swallowed hard. "I need time." Min-jae nodded once. "You have until morning." Naomi didn't sleep that night. She sat in a guest room that cost more than her apartment. Silk sheets, fresh flowers, a window overlooking gardens she'd never be able to afford. But all she felt was trapped. By morning, she had her answer. No. She would say no. She would walk away. She would forget this ever happened. But before she could speak, Min-jae called her into his office, and he told her the truth. The truth about that night. The truth that shattered everything. Jun-suk wasn't lost, Min-jae said calmly. He was abandoned. Intentionally. Naomi's stomach dropped. What? Min-jae's eyes never left hers. There was a traitor inside my organization, someone feeding information to my enemies, someone I couldn't identify. He paused. So I set a trap. Naomi felt sick. You used your own son to bait? I used what they wanted most, and it worked. The driver who forgot Jun-suk that night, the man who left a 6-year-old alone in the rain, he was the traitor. He was executed by sunrise. Naomi's hands trembled. That's insane! He's a child! Your child! He's my heir, and in my world, that means he will always be hunted. I had to know who to trust. The traitor is dead. Used his own son to be bait. If this story has you questioning everything, subscribe, because what she learns next is worse. Naomi wanted to leave, wanted to run, but Min-jae wasn't finished. There's something else you need to know, he said. He slid a folder across the desk. Naomi opened it. Inside were photos. Her apartment building, her hospital, her grandmother's house in Gary. What is this? She whispered. Your hospital, St. Vincent Mercy, has treated victims connected to my rivals. Gunshot wounds, overdoses, bodies that never were reported. Naomi's blood ran cold. I didn't know. I know, he said, but someone at that hospital leaked your name after you were seen with my son. Leaked her name to his enemies. You were already in danger before you walked through my gate, Min-jae continued. Walking away won't save you, Miss Carter. It never could. Naomi's legs felt weak. She gripped the edge of the desk. So what are you saying? Min-jae leaned forward. I'm saying I didn't bring you here because you helped my son. His voice dropped. I brought you here because someone wants you dead for it. She helped a child. Now she's on a hit list, and walking away won't save her? What would you do if your kindness made you a target? Naomi stayed. Not because she wanted to, because she had no choice. Months passed. She learned the rhythm of Min-jae's world. The guards who rotated every 6 hours, the cars that never took the same route twice, the meals prepared by chefs who never spoke. And Jun-suk, the boy who started waiting by the window every time she arrived, the boy who smiled only when she walked through the door, the boy who called her Auntie Naomi when no one else was listening. She became something rare in Min-jae's empire, a person who didn't bow, a person who didn't flatter, a person who looked him in the eye and said what no one else dared to say. You're raising him like a prisoner. They were standing in his office. Late evening, rain tapping against the windows. Min-jae's jaw tightened. I'm protecting him. From what? Naomi shot back. The world or yourself? Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. Any other person would have been removed. Maybe worse. But Min-jae just stared at her. He needs a real school, real friends, a real childhood, not guards and cameras and walls. Real friends get people killed in my world, Min-jae replied coldly. Then change your world. She told the most dangerous man in the city that he was failing his own son. If you think she's brave or insane, you're not alone. Subscribe, because what happens next proves she's getting through to him. Min-jae turned away, walked to the window, stood with his back to her. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, my father raised me the same way. His voice was quieter now. Walls, guards, no friends, no trust. He paused. I hated him for it. Naomi stepped closer. Then why are you doing the same thing to Junseok? Min-jae didn't answer, but his shoulders dropped. Just slightly. Just enough. That night, something shifted. Naomi didn't see it right away, but over the following weeks, small changes appeared. Junseok started attending a private school, twice a week, under heavy security, but outside the walls. Min-jae never admitted she was right. He never thanked her, but he listened, and in his world, that was everything. Naomi became something the Empire never expected. A conscience, a mirror, the only person who told him the truth. Not because she was brave, but because she had nothing left to lose. And that made her more dangerous than anyone with a gun. 1 year. That's how long Naomi survived in Min-jae's world. 1 year of learning, adapting, finding her place in a life she never asked for. Junseok was thriving. School twice a week, smiling more, laughing like a real child. He still called her Auntie Naomi, still ran to the window when her car pulled up, still hugged her like she was the safest person he knew. And maybe she was. Then, everything collapsed. It happened on a Tuesday, 3:47 p.m. Naomi was at the hospital finishing a shift when her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. 6 words. The boy is gone. Come now. Her blood turned to ice. She didn't remember the drive, didn't remember running through the estate gates, didn't remember screaming Junseok's name until her throat burned. All she remembered was Min-jae's face. Empty. Cold. Shattered. Who took him? She demanded. Min-jae's voice was barely human. Family. Naomi froze. What? My own cousin. My uncle. My own blood. An internal coup, a power grab disguised as loyalty. They wanted the Empire, and they used Junseok to get it. The ransom wasn't money. It was control. Step down, hand over everything. Or never see your son again. His own family took his child. Blood turned against blood. If this story has your heart racing, subscribe now, because what he does next will terrify you. But there was a second demand, one that made Naomi's knees buckle. They wanted her too, alive, as proof that Min-jae had grown weak, soft, distracted by a woman who didn't belong. She was leverage, a symbol of his failure. Min-jae didn't flinch when he heard it. He gave orders, cold, calculated, ruthless. Burn their houses, kill their guards, bring me their heads. Naomi watched him transform. The man who had listened to her, the man who had let his son go to school, the man who had softened, even slightly, was gone. In his place stood something ancient, something violent, something that would drown the city in blood to get his son back. His generals moved. His soldiers assembled. War was coming, and it wouldn't just kill the traitors. It would kill innocents, families, children, people who had nothing to do with any of this. Naomi stood in the middle of the chaos, shaking, terrified, but certain of one thing. If she didn't stop him, she would be responsible for everything that came next. Naomi found him in the war room. Maps spread across the table. red circles marking targets, names crossed out in black ink. Min-jae stood at the center, phone in hand, giving orders that would end lives before sunrise. Burn the safe houses, leave no witnesses. His voice was ice. His eyes were empty. The man she'd come to know was buried somewhere beneath rage and grief. Naomi stepped forward. Guards moved to block her. Min-jae raised one hand. They stopped. "Not now," he said, without looking at her. "Yes, now." She walked past the guards, past the generals, past the soldiers waiting for blood. She stood directly in front of him, a nurse from the South Side, facing a king preparing for war. "If you do this," she said, "your son becomes exactly what they want." Min-jae's jaw tightened. "They took my son. And if you kill 100 people to get him back, what does he learn?" Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "It means destruction, that power means blood, that the only way to solve a problem is to burn everything down." She stepped closer. "You'll save his body, but you'll lose his soul." She's standing between a grieving father and a massacre. One wrong word and she's dead. If you're holding your breath right now, subscribe, because what she says next changes everything. Naomi's hand trembled. His eyes glistened. For a moment, he wasn't a crime lord. He was a father. Terrified, desperate, broken. "What am I supposed to do?" he whispered. Naomi swallowed. "Use their greed against them." She pointed at the map. "They don't want Jun-sok dead. They want power. They want you to react. They want you to become the monster everyone already thinks you are." She paused. "So don't." Min-jae stared at Naomi. The room was silent. Every soldier, every general, watching a woman reshape the war with words. Give them what they think they want. A meeting, a negotiation. Let them believe they've won. Her voice hardened. Then take back your son quietly, surgically. No blood on the streets, no innocent bodies. Min-jae's breathing slowed, his fists unclenched. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he turned to his generals. "New orders." Naomi exhaled. Her legs nearly gave out, but she stayed standing because Jun-sok needed her standing. That night, Min-jae's soldiers moved in silence. No war, no fire, just shadows reclaiming what was stolen. And Naomi prayed it would be enough. The operation took 4 hours. No gunfire, no explosions, no blood on the streets. Min-jae's soldiers moved like ghosts. They infiltrated the safe house where Jun-sok was being held, neutralized the guards, extracted the boy, and vanished before anyone knew what happened. By dawn, Jun-sok was home. Alive. Shaken, but breathing. Naomi was waiting when they brought him in. He ran to her before anyone else, not to his father, to her. His small arms wrapped around her waist, his face buried in her scrubs, and for the first time since she'd met him, he cried. Deep, broken. The tears of a child who finally felt safe enough to fall apart. Naomi held him tight, whispering words she wasn't sure he could hear. "I've got you. You're okay. I've got you." Min-jae stood in the doorway, watching. He didn't move, didn't speak, didn't try to take his son from her arms, because he knew. He couldn't comfort Jun-sok the way she could, and that truth cut deeper than any betrayal. His son ran to her first, not to the most powerful man in the city, to a nurse from the South Side. If this moment hit you in the chest, subscribe, because the ending will stay with you forever. The traitors were never seen again. Not killed publicly, not executed in the streets. They simply vanished. Quietly. Completely. A message more terrifying than violence. In Min Jae's world, mercy was weakness, but disappearance was power. Word spread through the underworld fast. The woman beside Kang Min Jae wasn't a weakness, she was a weapon no one knew how to fight. She didn't carry a gun, she didn't give orders, but she could stop a war with a single conversation, and that made her untouchable. Naomi still wore scrubs, still worked nights at St. Vincent Mercy, still treated gunshot wounds and overdoses and broken bodies, but now, when a black car waited outside the hospital, it wasn't there to scare her. It was there to protect her. Some questions remained unanswered. Who first leaked her name to Min Jae's enemies? How long had he been watching her before that night? Was the meeting with Jun-sok truly an accident, or had she been chosen long before she ever knew? Naomi didn't ask. Some answers cost more than they're worth. One evening, she walked out of the hospital after a double shift. The black car was waiting. She climbed inside. Jun-sok sat in the back seat, now 7 years old. Stronger, calmer, but still watching her like she was the most important person in her world. "Auntie Naomi," he said quietly, "will you stay?" She looked at him, this boy who had changed everything, this boy who had asked her a simple question at 3 a.m., this boy who had made her a part of something she never wanted, but could no longer leave. "Yeah," she said softly, "I'll stay." Jun-sok smiled, and somewhere behind tinted glass, Kang Min Jae watched the woman who had once asked his son the simplest question, "Are you okay?" 3 words that changed the fate of an empire. Kindness isn't weakness. In a world that rewards cruelty, the person who chooses compassion becomes the most powerful force of all. Naomi didn't change Min Jae with violence. She changed him by being the only person who saw his humanity and demanded he live up to it. But somewhere in Seoul, a name was being whispered. Hers. And the people saying it weren't grateful. They were afraid. She walked into a hospital. She walked out holding an empire's fate. If this story moved you, subscribe to Tales by Wave, because the next one will leave you breathless.